Let's move on to Samuel. How's it going, Sam?
It's going well. I'm not sure. I now am full screen, so I don't know if you guys have switched.
I'm gonna add it on there. Tell us.
There we go. Look at
yes. So I've been playing, coming out tomorrow actually, Mortal Shell. The game that you may have heard is a lot like Dark Souls, and if you would have told me this is a development prototype for Dark Souls 4, I would have believed you. This game is the most Dark Souls thing in existence. I mean, just looking at this screen, if I didn't tell you this was a Dark Souls, you would probably just go, "Oh, that's Dark Souls."
It's Dark Souls. It's one or two.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much exactly like that. You lock on the enemies, and you can swing at them, and they have health, and you got to dodge. I got my foot stuck in a bear trap. That was fun.
That happens all the time to me in real life.
So this game does have a little bit of differences. There's no block mechanic. So the big thing about this is you can harden. So if I hold left trigger here, I turn into a little rock man, and I stay that way until somebody hits me. And then I have a cooldown period before I can do that. So you can do that harden at any time. So if I'm in the middle of an attack animation, I can harden, and this will still hit somebody if I come out of harden, or if they hit me during that time period. So this is the opening
attack animation. That's cool.
Yes, yeah. Also, you can do it like during another bear trap. Give me 2 seconds here. You can also do it like during dodge animations and stuff like that too. So you can pretty much activate it at any time. There is also a parry system. You have to gain what is called resolve. You get that from attacking people. So if this guy attacks me here, I can parry, and then I have a move right now that drains some of their life and gives me health back if I was missing health. And then you also have these signature moves of your weapons once you upgrade them. And you do that, and it does some cool animation work and does more damage with this one. Kind of does an area of effect that can kill a group of people. But yeah, so, I mean, this is Dark Souls. Like, if you're looking to play a Dark Souls-like game, like, this is the closest to Dark Souls I've seen so far. Stuff like The Surge. I'm trying to think of some of those other games. They're very similar, but this is like almost a direct rip of a Dark Souls game to just a different game. And so it's a little bit more linear, I would say, than a Dark Souls. I'm in the opening area right now. It's called Greymore. No, not Greymore. Philgore. I'm not sure. It's a very Dark Souls ass name. Okay. And so this is kind of a hub area. Like, this is where you would switch between shells, and also where like you would switch out your weapons once you have unlocked them. And to explain what shells are, so this game doesn't have classes technically. Like, you don't start the game to pick up and choose like, oh, I want to be like the mage class, or I want to be a tank or something like that. You find different shells. And once you find them, you can inhabit them, and there are ways to upgrade them slightly, but you don't ever upgrade like attack damage or like how much health and stuff you have. There's just certain different abilities that you can get. So I'm in this shell currently, and if I take enough damage to die, I get knocked out of my shell. So we're just going to get hit a couple times here. Okay, so now I'm into my like normal form. And this is one hit. So if I get hit again, I would die and have to restart.
So but it's like a skinless looking beast.
Oh, I hate it. Oh, God.
So you can apparently play through the entire game with just this. Like, you never have to inhabit a shell if you don't want to.
Oh, man, this is going to be like ultimate speed runs. No shell speed run.
So you are one hit in this. Whoa. But if you get back to your shell, and hopefully I don't step on any traps. Nope. If you, it just crashed.
Oh, cool.
Oh, that's interesting. So I will say that I had no crashing issues with this game during the entire time I was reviewing it, except for the last 2 days. Like, they pushed an update, and the game has not run stably for me since. Now, we did just sit there for like 30 minutes with it running in the background.
True.
So there's a chance that caused that. So I don't want to jump the gun and say that it's definitely a problem it has, but it is something I've only noticed once they pushed that like day one update, I think. So while it's loading back up here, I can just go over a couple more things.
Yeah, please.
So there's item familiarity in the game. And what that means is the items that you find in the game like start out where it obviously doesn't tell you what it does, much like Dark Souls games. But the first time you use it, then it will tell you what it does. But if you use it enough times, it sort of alters what that item will do to you. So there's like a mushroom where if you eat it at first, it poisons you over time. But if you take it enough times, it ends up being a immunity to poison.
Oh, that's interesting. So you kind of like work your body or work your character's body into, to build up tolerances, I guess.
Yeah, so like, and there's like healing items that, maybe it heals for like 20 damage over 10 seconds. But once you start taking it, then it will heal you for 35 over 5 seconds or something. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure if you're back on my screen or not.
Yeah.
So this person here is basically your bonfires. There's only maybe 10 to 15 total bonfires throughout the whole game. And she's where you would, restore your health. In between runs, and would also be where you upgrade your person. And then if like a bonfire in Dark Souls is also your like safe point. So this is the like sort of default location. That was the first bonfire. And so there's 3 different temples that you can go to in this game. We're not going to go into any of those today because it's a little bit of spoilery. But basically you go to these temples and return, and you can choose whichever one you want to go to. At any time, and by choose I mean you might just find one, and the first one you find is the one you go to. But you can certainly leave that one and come back to it and go to another dungeon if you wanted to.
Oh, there's little frogs. Look at them.
Yes, yeah, there are poisonous frogs out in these woods here too. So gotta be on the lookout for those. So we're gonna try this again, and hopefully it doesn't crash on me. But we'll.
So how big is this world that you're in? He said it's a little bit more linear than.
Yeah, so this first area, this like hub world is pretty open. There's like 3 different directions you can go, and they all sort of like intermix and mingle a little bit. But once you get into like the actual dungeons, it's really you're following like one path, and that's about it. So here, I got knocked down here again. Well, we're not going to get hit, and I'm going to jump back into this shell, and my health is restored and anything that I had. But if I get knocked down again, that'll be it, and I'll have to restart. So we'll get knocked down again here. So yeah, the fact that it is a little bit more linear is going to be great for speed running. But for the reasons it's great for speed running, it's also going to be bad for more casual players. You can pretty much run around every encounter. There has not been a spot in the game, and I've like tried. I'm in New Game Plus mode currently. There's not really a spot in the game where you can't like a well-timed roll or whatever won't get you around the encounter. So you can basically get yourself in a desperate situation and then just sprint forward into an area that you've never seen before, and you're probably going to make it to the next place. And that only kind of gets worse with time. You start getting weapon upgrades and stuff like that, where fights tend to become more trivial. Like if I was at the end of the game, or well, maybe like 2 of the 3 dungeons down, and trying to fight these bosses, I could these normal characters, you can basically get through, and this is the lowest stamina character in the game. You can get through your like attack pattern, and they won't even have a chance to hit you. The only like real threat comes is like when you have like maybe a group of 3 or 4, and you're kind of like stuck in a situation, but their pathing like doesn't allow them to follow you for very long. So if you just sprint out of a room, they're not going to follow you out of that room 9 times out of 10. Wow. So I honestly, like my initial playthrough was about 8 hours or so. And I honestly think you could probably speed run this game in under an hour, even for sort of casual players, just because you'd only have to fight the bosses. And once you get some weapon upgrades, which if you knew the locations of, you could get to like pretty quickly, like some of the boss fights become like super trivial. You build resolve using your like resolve moves. So like you can basically just spam those, and the bosses might not get a chance to attack. And also all the bosses have that like Dark Souls thing where it's like, oh, there's a hidden second health bar. Because for every single one of them has it. So it's like not a big surprise that like, oh no, the boss has a second health bar. Like who saw this coming? But yeah, I mean, it is very fun. Like if you're looking for like one of these games to not take very long and you just kind of want to mess around, like this Mortal Shell is definitely going to be that answer for those type of players. And also, we currently don't know when the next Dark Souls is coming out, if there is another Dark Souls, other than, I guess, they're remastering Demon Souls. Yeah. So there's a chance that we'll see that, and maybe they've made some changes to that that makes it, because I've heard that Demon Souls is probably the most hardcore of all these, obviously, since it was the first one and they didn't quite know what sort of players they were looking for, and they weren't really willing to make some maybe some player assumptions that people needed it just a little bit easier. Just going to look at my notes here. So there, I mean, other than the hardened functionality, there's really not a lot different that this game brings to the table. I know that they've shown off in some of the trailers this giant cannon gun here. That's been like the big, they've been using it for a lot of gifts.
A bazooka, basically.
Yeah, if you can see, like, you don't get very many bolts for it. Now you can buy them. There are places that there are NPCs and stuff that will sell you items. But I think I found like 15 bolts like out in the wild in my original playthrough. So it is hard to come by some of that ammo. And it doesn't necessarily do as much damage as you would hope it would. So you basically only want to save it for if there's super big characters that you should worry about. So I think the difficulty definitely spikes at the beginning of the game, and then once you sort of get down past your first dungeon, like you're pretty much set in taking care of enemies.
Oh my God.
It does sort of, dude. It does sort of use some of these earlier little guys. Let's see if we can get rid of this bigger dude over here. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So these opening area guys are like pretty easy, but some of the dungeons have some bigger dudes that they don't necessarily wipe them out, but it does stagger a few of them. So there are different options with that. There aren't really any more items that can sort of be used as weapons. There is a couple items that, like, if you take this, it gives you health back on a successful harden or a successful parry attack. So there is a lot of like sort of things you can go about doing to like change up your combat styles. But really you'll probably find like one or two things that really work for you and sort of stick with it. So like these earlier guys, like you can pretty much just wait until your harden's up and you can go swinging at them. And if they swing back at you, you can just harden and block it and attack them. There are archers. This game really does love the Dark Souls, like, come around a corner and there's two people waiting for you, or there's like an archer up in the trees you can't see. So you got to look out for some of that stuff. But I mean, yeah, it's Dark Souls.
It looks like it's Dark Souls, but without like some of that extra fluff that you kind of see in these kinds of games. Like it's sort of, it feels like it's sort of this pared down essence of Dark Souls type of thing.
Yeah, at least on PC, it runs super well too. Where I know, like on consoles, a lot of the Dark Souls games have had some issues where it like necessarily like doesn't do the actions on screen that you're trying to input. But this one, I haven't had any issues with that. Like the gameplay's been super fluid. Like you don't really need that spec down of a computer to throw too much at it. I've run it on two different machines, and both of them handled it. Like I'm on ultra settings right now, and it's running just fine.
That was cool.
Yeah. Do you guys have like any questions specifically? I think I've gotten through like most of my notes. I in honesty, like it's a very good game. I think it's priced at $30, which seems fair since it's not a very long game. But New Game Plus appears to just keep stacking on. Like enemies have more health. You don't get any more health back, but you can upgrade your weapons to a further extent than you could in your original playthrough. So there's definitely replayability, and as I said, speedrunners are going to absolutely gravitate towards this game. Like honestly, if somebody tells me by the end of the week that they have this game down to like a half an hour speedrun, wouldn't be shocked.
Wow.
Is the overall aesthetic of the game like this, where it's like just sort of dark woodsy fantasy, or
so this first area is all of this like dark woodsy fantasy stuff.
Yeah.
But like each of the dungeons are sort of themed. Like one of them's more of a like ice level, and the other one's more of like a castle type area. So there is a bunch of different biomes, if you want to call them that.
Yeah.
I got wrecked. But it is this sort of dark area, and this central area that you come to does change a little bit, not to like a great extent, but basically every time you beat a dungeon, it goes into this alternate state, and has a different set of enemies and a little bit higher of a difficulty. So at least when you return, you're not returning to the same sort of easy enemies that once you've upgraded, you're sort of used to and can just kind of slice your way through all of them.
That's cool.
You said it runs pretty well on PC, right? What kind of computer do you have? What kind of PC do you have?
Well, this one is gross overkill, so I'm running it on a Core i7 8700K with a NVIDIA GTI 1080 Ti, or 1080 Ti. So this one's too much for it. Let's say I was running the game when I was playing through it normally. I was running it at like 4K 60 and having like absolutely no problems doing it. And then I didn't have any running problems at all until they got that update out there. And then I was having issues with it crashing every time I was knocked out of my character. But other than that, I haven't run into any issues with performance.
Like one of the things that I know that people really kind of dig about the actual mainline Dark Souls games is that there's almost like I hate to say kind of like Monster Hunter, but there's like specific types of tactics and strategies that you have to pull off to get past certain bosses and certain situations. Is this built up like that, or where it's almost like this strange puzzle rhythm type thing, or is this more of just know when to use the different shells and keep hacking away type of game?
Yeah, it's really just like you just want to start to learn like what these enemies specifically do. So like this guy like pretty much always charges you. There are certain attacks that you can't parry. So if you notice the thing that's on my back here, you might not really see it much, but it'll flash red if it's an attack that I can't parry. So there are like attacks like that. Some of the bigger guys, basically all of their attacks you can't parry. So you want to be looking out for that stuff. But yeah, it's basically you kind of learn what the patterns of these guys are, and you just kind of manipulate fights. Like obviously at the start, I would not want to fight these two guys, but hopefully if I do this weapon technique, nope, didn't do it. Let's see if I could be brave and beat these guys without getting back into that shell. So like you'll learn certain ways, like these guys, like pretty much once you learn the weapon techniques, they can they can easily die, like if you're just kind of swinging at them and use those weapon techniques successfully. So you'll learn that type of stuff, and you'll learn that like, okay, I cannot fight this enemy next to this one. Like I've got to separate them and I've got to take them on one at a time, or I'm just screwed here. So you got to look out for that stuff. But that's, anybody that's played Dark Souls games is pretty used to dealing with that sort of like stacking enemies, and how like there are definitely groups you don't want to fight together.
How much of we talked a little bit about the environment. How much of the environment and the world either gets in your way or it provides an asset? Because you see things on all these different levels, right? There's trees off on one side, there's rocks, it's definitely a lot more obstacle based. I don't know if there's a lot of verticality in this either, but does that like have all this stuff in this sort of, JJ, you call it the dark woodsy fantasy. Does this like, do obstacles get in your way a lot, or because I noticed in one moment you were kind of spinning the camera around and your character disappeared and you got smacked in the back of the head, but does that ever get in the way, or is that just sort of
I only really had one issue with like in like real combat, that there was a camera in the way. It does very good job of having these sort of open environments, and even when they're closed, you're not going to be like, okay, I'm going to run and hide behind this thing a lot, or I'm going to hopefully like, there's no like physical interactivity. Like I'm not going to push a set of barrels down a flight of stairs or whatever and attack somebody with it. But there certainly are strategies of running away from people and using the environment that way, like making sure you exit a room and get a couple of feet away from it, so an enemy will stop following you, and they won't regain their health. So it's a good way.
Okay, so they stay damaged depending.
Yes, yeah. At least from my experience, if you leave the area, like if you were to half health somebody and then come back, leave the dungeon and then come back, they're going to regain their health. And also, if you reset at a bonfire, they'll regain their health.
Okay.
This is one of the other weapons. There's about I want to say there's 5 weapons and 4 shells. Whoop. And each one of the dungeons kind of has a weapon hidden there.
Do you have a favorite weapon, or are you finding yourself using mixing and matching the weapons a lot?
So I was using the daggers primarily towards the end of the game. I tried to get good at this weapon. I think it looks really cool, but I'm really bad with it.
Seems like it's got a little bit of an aim issue because of the height, and then it's a little slower, obviously.
Yes, okay. It's definitely slower. And this character is your big tank character, so it just compounds the level of slowness that these things feel.
Real cool. So you're digging it. You're digging that it's you mentioned fun, and you never hear that from you don't hear something say Dark Souls. It's a fun game. Yeah. You're like, I got fucking challenged. I lost on this run on Dark Souls. No, you actually use the word fun and enjoyable, which is kind of cool for someone like me who's not a hardcore Souls player. I mean, I've dabbled in the Souls here and there, but I guess I kind of wanted something that has a little bit, and I don't want to say easier or anything, but just has a little bit more of a kind of that basic element of Dark Souls without forcing me to learn a bajillion different mechanics.
Yeah, definitely at the start, it is hard. I was banging my head against this opening area, but once you sort of understand. Once you get the counter system and all that type of stuff, you sort of start to piece together your approach to combat. And once you're there, you can pretty much, if you want to, just get stuck in that rut and complete the entire game using that pattern of attacks if you want to.
Sure.
It does give you some varying choices. Every weapon has a different master attack. Here, I can actually do this one. This one sort of just flame charges the spear here. So I'll start doing fire damage to these guys. See, they'll catch on fire there. So there is different gameplay styles with that type of stuff. And, you'll probably find your favorite one once you unlock them, and you'll go from there. But, yeah, I would say, once you become comfortable and you get past your first dungeon, then the game really just starts to become okay, how am I going to manipulate the systems to feel more comfortable and to get through things? And it never feels it's not I never had an instance where I had in Dark Souls where you feel like you've been playing for 2 hours, you haven't seen a bonfire, and you're just so desperate to find a place, but you don't want to run back and have to go through the whole thing again. It feels like that the bonfires and stuff are spaced out just fair enough in the dungeons that you don't have to worry about that type of stuff.
I like that you used comfort level and then just fair enough, which is really interesting whenever talking about this type of game. You don't usually hear that. It's usually overly brutal, but again, obviously, once you learn the systems and kind of bypass some of that stuff, you're able to. It seems like you're able to kind of find your own, angle.
I respect that it took 30 years, but somebody finally brought back the Tanuki power-up from Super Mario.
There it is. Yeah. Very cool. So you give it the Sam Dixon thumbs up?
Yeah, I would definitely say, I hate to always say the fans of the genre, but if you're a Souls fan, this is definitely something worth checking out. We'll definitely keep your interest for a little bit until you can find another one of those. For the more casual players, I think that this one is probably sort of an easier pill to swallow than one of those Dark Souls games. Definitely not as long. Those Dark Souls games can become 50, 60-hour epic, especially if you're not great at them. But this one, I feel like there's just enough that you're not beating yourself against a wall to figure out that you will, as soon as you become comfortable with the sort of system and you get used to these initial enemies that you have to deal with, even though clearly it seems like I'm not comfortable dealing with them in this gameplay so far.
Stage fright.
Yeah. Like I definitely think like if somebody's like, oh, you got to try out Dark Souls, like be like, cool, I'm gonna check out Mortal Shell instead, and you'll be perfectly fine.
Excellent, awesome. So there it is, Mortal Shell. The Souls for people who like Souls and people who don't know about Souls. So.
the Souls for people that want to keep their souls.
The Souls for people that want to keep their souls, who want to keep their shells.